and welcome everybody. We are going to try and be a bit uplifting, a bit positive to finish the day off. Feels like it's time for that. But first I want to I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves. So we'll start from the far end. David, tell us a bit about yourself, what you're doing here.
Hello, I'm David Schulhoff. Thank you for having me. Welcome to be here. And I'm with Tobor Life AI. I'm the founder. Tobor Life is a developer of robot applications and a master distributor for Unitree robots.
Excellent. Devinder.
My name is Devinder. I lead AI at Frontier Tower, and I also consult in this space. I primarily focus on reducing anxiety for my clients with respect to tech.
Sorry, increasing anxiety or reducing anxiety?
Reducing.
Reducing, okay, that's probably better.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Bussell. I am, among other things, the Exec Director of the Confidential Computing Consortium, which is part of the Linux Foundation. I'm a techie with delusions of management, and I'm just here to ask questions and hopefully get some conversation going. I've also been doing distributed systems and stuff since probably before most of you were born, which is really embarrassing, but that's where we are. So you may have noticed that we've got this physical world as part of the definition of what we're supposed to talk about. And we were having a bit of discussion backstage about what we mean by the physical world. So Devinder, do you want to give your take on what you think we should be talking about? And then I can disagree with you.
Yeah, sure. I think the physical world is very real. Like there's physical AI, so there's robotics, there's that aspect of the physical world. And really anything that impacts people in their lives and is real for them is part of the physical world as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so you have a problem with that, David? Are you going to let us roll with that?
No, I think it's consistent. I mean, I think people are familiar with AI in a conceptual, cloud-based format, and I think with robotics now, it brings it into the physical world to impact us even more so.
Sure, okay. So, I mean, part of the thinking behind here is that we all know people who are scared by AI, right? And scared about where it sits in the world and how they work with it. My kids are both at university, and they're both reading liberal arts degrees, and they are concerned that if they touch AI, they're basically going to be kicked off the course, right? Because that's what happens if in the way they think of it. But I'm really hoping that most of the people here, if not all of you, kind of take a somewhat different view. So I kind of want to start off with asking the question, you know, are there any workflows you're seeing where AI is actually adding real value right now, rather than just R&D stuff? Devinder, why don't you start off?
Yeah, I'll start with your kids. Working with schools to help them figure out reshaping their curriculum. Kind of have a fast and slow mode, where in the fast mode, you're actually figuring out like the skills that you need this month because the new technology came out and it's very useful for work. And in the slow mode, it's like, can we get the whole degree done in 3 years? Community colleges are also taking a different approach to this, where they're trying to figure out the most useful degrees, but so are other universities. So that's one example. Certainly, everyone here sees the impact of like all of these bots and agents kind of speeding them up. And obviously, the amount of work that's coming your way is also increasing. And so we have to find the new equilibrium.
Okay, I like that. And David, what about in your world? You say you're strongly in the robotics kind of world. Give me some ideas of sectors or usage cases where AI is really impacting there.
Sure, and you said outside of research. So we've seen deployments or working on deployments in security patrolling, so where the robots can go around and look for unusual things that they've been trained to spot. Also in construction sites, very good at transporting heavy loads up rough terrain and around, and as well as like wellness checks on people or inspecting. Another application is carrying around measuring devices. So where maybe a human had to go around carrying some type of measuring device for radioactivity or heat sensors, now a robot can go around with that same route and record the information.
And where does AI fit in there? Because we've had robots, you know, going into hazardous areas for a while now, right? Where does AI help? What's the step up that AI gives us?
A few things. I mean, off the top of my head, one would be it can recognize objects or its environment, so it can navigate more easily in unfamiliar terrain, and it can identify objects that it sees and report on that. So it enables it to do missions rather than just be, you know, a mechanical tool.
Okay, so it can be more intentional, and it can actually have more autonomy than it might otherwise do, make decisions as to what it should do.
Exactly. You make decisions and report back to you based on those decisions.
So it's agentic in some ways, one might say.
Very much.
Excellent. Sorry, Devinder, you were looking like you had something to say.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, the reason we started using deep learning and all of these different types of AI models is because you can now deal with variability. You obviously have to make some adjustments for the things that you previously knew were deterministic from your software, but now you can handle cases where instead of a 45-minute wait time on Bank of America's call line, you can get done with something in 5 minutes, right? That's nice value. But it also applies in different areas, like you'd mentioned for robotics. If you can figure out obstacle detection and you don't have to use classical computer vision models to deal with every aspect of a factory automation, then you can, at the very least, get to your next cycle of automation much, much faster. And in the best case scenario, deal with a lot of these corner cases without having to intervene.
Okay, so there's some positive things there, right? We're saying there's things that robots can do that we can't, but I'm also hearing we don't need humans anymore. Tell me, please, that we need humans still? David?
Sure, very, very much so. So we're at very, very early stage of this technology. And as you've seen other technology waves happen, there's a lot of rough edges at the very early stage. So while they're deployable and they can definitely take over some jobs, there's a lot of supervision need. There's a lot of occurrences that happen that maybe weren't planned, where you have to intercede and then train the robot for those. So we're, again, very early stage. The robots have a lot to learn before they can replace us completely. I think that's quite a ways off.
Devinder?
Yeah, when hasn't this question been asked, right? When the calculators first came by, are humans forever replaced? This question keeps coming up time and time again. And it's not like we say, okay, all of human productivity that we have today, we're going to stop with that because we have a technology that allows us to do the things that we need to do. Like Amazon didn't stop at 5-day shipping. They kept going faster because they could figure out, that's what people want. And I think the same is true for a lot of these technologies. There's no stopping us when it comes to figuring out new ways to either create value or to have fun or to build around the world.
Yeah, but I kind of feel, we're on the singularity stage, right?
Sure.
And I kind of feel that there's a bit of a difference here. That if we, as we near the singularity, whatever that looks like, are we not getting to a stage where there's a whole bunch of stuff that really machines aren't going to need us for? And, where does that stop? Will there be things still? And if so, what are they? I've got a few ideas, but what do you think?
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's this really cool niche piece of research that I didn't know about. My buddy at the tower, Clovis, he actually leads it alongside me. He explained to me this idea of post-labor economics. This whole field of research where people are trying to figure out when everything is figured out, and a single person can build $1 billion company, which is apparently happening. What does that leave us? And we have healthy debates about this because I'm not convinced that we'll ever reach a point where we'll have figured everything out. If you are saying that singularity as it stands exists in a mode where it has figured out every single thing out for us and we don't need to do anything else, we're kind of in Star Trek world, right?
Well, I very carefully didn't say that, but yeah, okay, that's a fair point. So you don't believe in that, or you think it's...
I think we're so far away from this. Lines are different, right? Everyone defines AGI different ways. Otherwise, by some definitions, we're there. We have been there since the first agents came about. And by other definitions, we won't be there for another 20, 30 years. So depending on how you define whether we're still useful, I don't code nearly as much as I used to directly. But I'm writing a lot more coding projects. Am I still useful? I think they're of value to me. I think the nature of how these things are shaping my life is changing. It's an evolving situation. I don't think we can just put a pin in it saying we're useless at some point.
David, are you still useful? Sorry, that sounds really mean. Tell me.
It depends who you ask, I think. But I think you made some good points. People are used to concepts of robots from movies and television. And we're maybe at step 1 compared to step 10,000 we need to get to. So I think it's a long time to imagine a world without us. But even then, creativity, invention, human ingenuity, how we dream things, there's elements that I don't think will ever be created that replace us.
Yeah, I've got ethics and guardrails and fact-checking down there with creativity. But I sometimes wonder whether... There's this asymmetry, right? We talked about how technologies have always come along and, calculators provided a new way of doing things much faster, much more easily. But just with the speed and the scale at which you can do things, I do worry even about stuff like creativity. I don't know if you've been following that people are doing maths proofs with AI, but the AI doesn't get them, right? It often is giving good ideas towards. And I wonder whether we will get to a stage where the AI can actually solve some of these maths problems. But I'm not sure that I expect a world where it sees why it should. Does that make some sense, David?
Yeah, well, this is kind of something you're dancing around, but we're focused on robotics AI. And as you know, robots are AI in the physical world, just manifested. And we think that to get to AGI, to get to where the robot can function like us and navigate the world, that it has to be, you have to put AI in a physical body. Because without the physical body, it's kind of in a dream state, like when we're dreaming. We don't have our bodies, we're just a floating consciousness in our dreams. You don't have all your capabilities. There's many things you can't do and things you don't understand. So AI really needs to understand the physical world to advance is our belief. So getting it into robotics, training robots about the physical world should help advance that. And that's what Tober Life is about, is advancing it so robots can take over the world a little faster.
So I think the argument is that without real world actual interaction, physical interaction, AI can't actually be getting closer to us. And as that happens, there are some physical constraints that will slow things down. Am I kind of getting that right or not?
Yeah, I didn't follow the last part, but the physical constraints will help build an understanding of the world for AI so that it can be more useful for us and moves it towards the AGI. And yes, there'll be limitations in there to protect us.
The positronic brain is not yet upon us, but Asimov fans.
Data.
Anything?
Yeah, there's also different measures of what intelligence even means. We haven't really figured this out for ourselves. Like there's consciousness questions, there's intelligence questions, there's all of these layered questions. So I really try to stay very close to like, how is this useful in my real life? And right now, as an assistive tool, in every layer, it's extremely useful to utilize AI. As an independent tool doing everything by itself, maybe with agentic orchestration, you can say it's able to do some of those things. But there's still quite a few steps left. And from my point of view, first, completely forget the idea that the way that neural networks work, even though we name them that way and they're modeled after the brain, it's not exactly the way our intelligence works, right? So it's a different type of thing. And the amount of data it has at boot, like the scale is enormous. There are very different ways that these things work. But even given that it's helping us in all these ways, I think we're a few days, months, weeks, years away.
I don't like the days, but I think that's a fair point. And the fact that we don't know how our own consciousness works means it's rather difficult to say whether AI is or will be conscious even, right?
It's a completely different framework altogether. When you think of like classical deep learning, like essentially you're teaching patterns and the ability to reimprint on those patterns over the course, like understand like fairly deep ideas is basically, we'll give you enough layers, we'll figure out there's a depth to this, there's different types of patterns that can be learned, and maybe that means it's learned. And because of LLMs and the latest advances in machine learning, we're saying, oh, we're getting pretty close to this pattern matching. That must be intelligence. It might not be, but it's very useful, and so we should use that.
Yeah, unless, of course, our consciousness is just pattern matching.
Yeah, that's true, too.
David, sorry.
So just touching again on what you're saying. So voice recognition has been around for 50, 60 years. I mean, when I was a little boy, there was ELIZA and there was voice recognition as part of that. But it was very elementary compared to what we can do today, of course. And I see where we are today maybe like voice recognition was 50 years ago. And if you project that out, like these AI factories that they're building for $50 billion with nuclear power plants next to them, and the level of computing power that exists there, I think eventually we'll be in a handheld device or in a robot. And when that level of, it might take decades, but when that does occur, I mean, I think essentially they'll reach us. When you have that level of power locally to exploit. But I think, right now we're simulating something that eventually will be the reality of it, just like voice recognition from 50 years ago.
So you said the word exploit, and which kind of brings me to my next question is, should humans be scared? And if so, of what?
I think of a Mark Twain quote that comes to mind, where he said, if you take a starving, sick dog and you feed it and you make it well, it'll never bite you. And he said that is the difference between dogs and man. And I reflect on that. The dogs are created by God, and AI and robots are created by man. So I just think we have to be careful. But I believe in a bright future with them.
So, Devinder, AI is basically a dog?
No, I don't. You could guardrails. Yeah, you could make the argument that we can certainly train certain behaviors into AI, and there's a lot of value in that. Sure. I don't see it as a dog per se. I think the despair thing is so weird to me because think about all the things we can do now. Like, you can take your government website that has this really terrible civics setup, and you can't find the right form or the right thing that you need to do, and you can feed it to OpenClaw or some agent and some orchestration unit, and you can get through a problem that used to take a lot of time and was completely unreachable for vast majority of people who can't afford these services, and now they can figure out how to deal in their civics environment. You have transfer learning happening from all these people who are learning to curate all of this knowledge utilizing AI because they're forced to use these systems, much like we're kind of forced to use the internet today and the cloud. And the transfer learning is essentially teaching you how to curate data that's coming from your social media. And so you better understand how to be a curator of knowledge. And so all of these wins that we're getting have very clear value. So the idea that should we be worried, of course, every great thing should come with a healthy amount of skepticism, and this idea that you should be careful of all the terrible things that can happen. But there's so much opportunity to do good.
So I agree with that, and I'm also aware that we're speaking to a captive audience of the right people, right?
Sure.
Of all the people who are likely to be able to survive and have jobs of some type and livings, a lot of them are in this room, right? And I think back to example of when sewers started being invented, right?
Yeah.
They were obviously a common good for most people, right? But the people who used to take away the stuff from the streets, they lost their jobs, and they couldn't necessarily retrain, and that is going to happen. So I think at the individual level, there will be, and we're seeing, entry-level jobs are disappearing in some sectors, and I think they're going to come back. But okay,
yes,
that's what to say. Yes, you agree,
That's
right?
Exactly right. Things will impact us in a poor way, which is why I'm saying it's not all roses.
Yep.
But we have the tools today to get back up from that.
Who is we? Who is we?
All of humanity has
Humanity.
these tools.
Yeah.
To get back up from this idea of hey, I might not have a job, but you can learn new skills faster than you could have ever learned it, at a deeper level than you could have ever learned it, and you can start implementing it today. That has never happened either.
Yeah.
So there's this balance that, sure, as the bad things happen, if we are constantly correcting, we as humanity and the civics and the governments and the organizations actually care about their people, which I hope most do, there's an opportunity to really just push forward through the despair part, which inevitably happens with all of these changes.
And I think one of the other changes, to come to a point I think is relevant to you, David, is that quite a lot of the previous changes have been technological or informational changes. Think of the internet or printing. But this one has relevance and instantiation in the physical world through robots, through other types of automation and AI in ways that maybe haven't before. Maybe that's a thing to be positive about?
Yeah, and I just would build on what you said about the opportunity. So, if you don't have your job moving boxes or pushing a paper anymore, cleaning up something on the street, the power that a robot with AI gives you, all you have to do is imagine an application or something that could be valuable to somebody, and you have a machine there that can do things that have never been able to be done before. So I think it empowers people to create great businesses on their own with these tools and make a lot more money than they
But
would
not
ever make
everyone
before.
is a business owner. Not everyone wants to do that or can do that. And there will be, I don't want to use the word suffering. There will be people who do not do well out of it. But I think it's going to float more boats than it sinks. And that's the hope. And I think we have a responsibility as the people in this room to think about the people who it's going to be most difficult for to do that. So we haven't got a huge amount of time left. I had kind of one final thing, and I'm not sure it's even the right question, okay? But what does AI do badly now that it's going to do better soon that is relevant to this particular problem?
Do you want to take that first?
I got to think on that.
Okay, I have a few things, and it's not badly. It's
So I
things,
didn't say it again?
I have a few things.
Okay,
and
fine,
it's not
Ray.
badly, but it's things that we're constantly improving on. Obviously, we still need a lot of data to be able to learn a new mode of operation. That's a technology that's being constantly improved. You see it at every level in the LLMs world, in the
And I would add energy usage to that as well.
Energy usage is this thing that we're terrible at right now, and I think not only can we work with machines to make them better faster, we can utilize AI to make them better faster, even faster, right?
There's a song about that.
Yeah, sure. There's so many things that it does well too that we misunderstand. And there's a lot of lack of knowledge. Like sometimes people use these AI systems, a lot of clients I help, they're trying to use it like a deterministic system. Forget the fact that not everything is deterministic that we think it is, but just the idea that they're trying to use the tool in the wrong way. If we start teaching people how to use the tool the right way, as we're improving the tool over time, there's a lot to be gained still.
Okay, I like that. David?
Well, yeah, just as you said, the hammer was probably used to build this great hall we're in. But in the wrong hands, you have broken bones and broken glass if it's used correctly. So I think the training of the tools is very important. Also, areas that, in terms of robotics for AI, navigating the world in the physical world is still a big challenge for the robots, okay? So once that is overcome, and there's a lot of work done on it, and training data is key. For the AI that people are familiar with, there's been all the writings of humanity up till now for it to absorb. So there's a lot of training data. But for the physical world, there's very little training data, and it's being created, but that's going to take a lot longer for the robots to learn how to navigate and deal with our world, even just to come and pick up a bottle. So once that happens, we're in a whole new world.
I go further than that, because the physical world isn't just these things, right? It's how we interact. It's how organizations work, how communities work. And navigating what that looks like in AI is a next level problem, and something hopefully we can continue to help with. And luckily there's a lot of science fiction in this area, not all of it positive, but a fair amount of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a very short time left. Devinder, what would you send people out with some hope? Give our audience some hope around AI in the real world.
I think the opportunity to improve your life and do less of the boring things is immense. I think the technology is constantly improving, but if you were to stop today, you could still get a lot more value out of it. I think every single person here who wants to can build a business. I think every single person who wants to can learn a new skill faster than ever before possible. And for sure, you can also make an impact in new ways that you might not have had the tools or just the resources to be able to do. So you're empowered in ways that you've never been empowered before.
Cool. David, some hope, please.
Well, eventually, robots will learn how to build robots and repair them and make them. And then they'll make, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of robots. And the robots will eventually then maybe make a city of robots and build roads between their cities. And just like we do, we don't really ask the animals for permission when we put a road in through a city. So, we might look like that to them. But again, I think that's a long way off. And I really more echo the idea that, we can have zero-cost goods. Like with robots making everything and doing everything, we can build a utopia if it's engineered right, if the right thoughts are presented. So I think it's really up to us to formulate the vision for the future that we want and make it happen.
Thank you. So my last takeaway is that I'm hopeful because you lot are here, right? Some of you stay. Well, we've had more people arrive. People care about this, and we can engage on this. And I'm hoping that in a year or two, we'll have AIs in the audience or on the panel that we can engage with as well. That's going to be really interesting when that happens, right? I know people are beginning to do these talk shows, but when we get to that stage and we can actually start having these conversations and seeing how we can interact, that's when I think it gets really interesting. And please go out, be hopeful, do the right things, and thank you very much indeed.